Hey, good morning, up and at 'em. Yes, it is. It is Monday, July 28th, the beginning of another work week, right? Back to the grind. For some of us, we never leave the grind alone. Today, I want to talk about how to give your customer the best answer. And it may not be the best for you, but it's the best answer. So stick around. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Monday, the 28th of July. We're almost at the end of the July already. So I spent most of my weekend working on hay and running here, running there. I get asked this question a lot because it's a double-edged sword. It's when it comes to doing repair work on your customer's machine, I feel that it's our job to give our customer the best informed information for them to make a informed decision, right? And I've seen before in other shops and sometimes in our shop where it's not always the easiest way or the cheapest way or the fastest way or the most profitable way for us, that it's not laid out the way it should be. And how should we be laying this out? It all depends upon the customer that you have, right? Some customers are very knowledgeable about their mowers or snow blowers or what have you, right? Whereas I have other customers that are totally clueless. They have finally learned after years of watching and doing how to start their lawnmower, how to mow the yard, and get it through a mowing without destroying it. Okay? So you need to figure out where that customer is. And you should know anyways with bringing things to them and listening to them. You know, I spend the bulk of my time with my customers listening, not speaking, listening. And I'm listening for a few different things, and that is what level are they at of mechanical? What price range are they at where they're comfortable? And what are the don't do's? You know, when I say don't do's, you don't do certain things with that customer or you're going to lose them. You know, and having a sarcastic joke or something and gets taken the wrong way, you could lose a customer. Or a shop talk. That's when I say shop talk. I'm not saying that you don't have the right to have your own personal beliefs when it comes to politics, religion, and all that. But when it comes to the shop, you want the shop to stay as neutral as possible. You do not want your shop to become part of a political system or a spiritual system, or I mean, they've got churches they can go to, and they've got, you know, different RNC and DNCs and all the ANCs and whatever else is involved. So that's what I mean by the don't do's. Is there's no sense in alienating half your customer base because you decided that your business is your business and you can do whatever the heck you want. I'm saying go for it. If that's your style, to each their own. But you know, we watch this, you know, with what is it, Bush or Budweiser or whatever. With it's not whether they're on the right or wrong side. It's they're on the wrong side all the time. If you bring your views into the shop, okay. I'm not willing to sacrifice half my customers over what my beliefs are. I believe in God, but probably half of my customers don't. Does that mean they can't be my customers? No. Does that mean that if they bring up something and they want to talk spiritual, that, you know, I'll listen to them? Yeah, I will. Doesn't mean I'm going to start trying to convert them. And that's the worst thing you can do anyways, is, I always believe with religion, the way it should be, is it's nothing to be feared, and you come to it at your own time and place. I've been spiritual for years and years. So I always say things happen for a reason, right? So you got to be careful when it comes to that, right? But you need to figure out where your customer's at and come at them. And I've seen shops take and look at what's the most profitable for the business. Like doing a complete engine rebuild versus buying a new Predator engine with a warranty. The engine rebuild is going to bring more hours into the shop, right? And that's fine if you got the hours. But most of us, when we're working in the spring rush, that's not the time that we do engine rebuilds. We do them usually when things start to slow down. And it's hard because the customer wants their machine, right? And a lot of times we start seeing things like compression starting to get a little weaker in her, and blow by, and she starts using oil. There's certain telltale signs that an engine's getting kind of wore. And what we used to do with the bulk of our customers that wanted engine rebuilds is we would do all these, because you should be doing them anyways. And I do ask my customers, how often do you check the oil on this? Most of them lie and say, oh yeah, I check it every time. But the better question is, how often do you have to add oil to this? Because if it comes back and they never change the oil and the oil is still right up there, it's not burning oil. But if you get it in and you pull the dipstick and it's just touching the dipstick, it's going somewhere. So we would take those customers and groom them to, in the fall of the year, bring it back in, and this is the game plan. I'll order a new short block, or order piston and rings. We'll order whatever it needs, and we'll do a complete refreshing. And a complete refreshing, if it's done by the right mechanic, is, to me anyways, is just as good as a brand new one. I've seen some really good mechanics. Claude's one of them that can take an old tired engine and give it a whole new breath of fresh air. So we would groom them to have them drop the machine off in the fall, and we would pull the engine and work on the engine through the winter months. And we'd have 7 or 8 different engines being rebuilt at the same time in different phases, right? And that was pretty good income. Now, I mean, a lot of shops are out there saying, well, the Harbor Freight engines are junk. I think they all are. Compared to what they were 20 years ago, I think they all are. There's none of them that can match up against a 20-year-old engine. They've put on so much crapola trying to be EPA and friendly to the environment. And I think in the end, it's actually hurt the environment more by the stuff they put into it. It's like everything that's in there is toxic. Where before you had just your engine oil and your antifreeze and your gas was the only toxic thing in it years ago. Now the stuff that it's made from is toxic. And where does it go? It goes to a landfill. It gets recycled, but it still goes to a landfill. But we need to figure out with that customer of, is it cheaper for them? And that's what I'm, saying. You have to be honest with your customer. again, levels. If you're going into a one that is up there with mechanical, that does know how to do certain mechanical stuff, does understand the process and this and that, you can go at them saying, look, we're fixing, one of three things. The first one is we can do a complete engine rebuild on that engine. But is the machine worth it? Two, we can go with a OEM engine and drop it in. But is the rest of the machine worth it? And are you going to keep it, or are you just going to pedal it? That's the other key. Is if the machine is 10, 12 years old and they're looking at updating, they're probably not going to want to spend that kind of money. They'd rather put that money down on a new one, right? And sell the one for what they can get out of it, and then put that towards the new one. But what I'm getting at is that when you come at them, you have to come at them as you're looking out after them. And you have to present all options. And then let your customer decide which one is best. If your customer is at the low level of knowing the workings and how to work on stuff and this and that, you may have to steer them more in that direction. But we've always had a policy here at the shop. If it's over 50% of what it is new, is it really worth it? And the other thing is before we start counting things out, and we've done this before. We've done a compression check and tried to get it running, and it would run, but it was hard to start, this and that, and forget to adjust the valves. See, now, if you're going to your customer with the wrong information, that is, you don't know all the information yet because you haven't adjusted the valves. And if the valves are out of adjustment, we all know what happens, right? It either can be no compression or it could be bound up, one or the other. Could be a vent push rod, could be, but hopefully you've been doing this for a while that you know what certain things trigger. And if you don't, you will as you stay in this business. It's memory is the biggest thing, is seeing things happen, but that can get you into trouble too. Because if you see something similar to something that happened, 2 weeks ago in the shop, and it was this aha moment, you start doing that, and it's totally different. So you need to come at it with a blank slate. Just, here is your lawnmower. What is the issue? Let's do the checklist, right? Compression, fire, fuel, air, and go within those spectrums. And if we have a poor compression, does it have overhead valves? Is there something that's resisting somewhere in the system? You as a mechanic have to figure that out. And then you as a mechanic, if you are just the mechanic, not just, but if you're the mechanic in the shop and you have someone out front, that person out front needs to be able to understand exactly what the best options are to present to the customer, right? So that's why I say you have to get something for a diagnostic fee. That's what you're doing, is you're diagnosing. And a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, within that diagnostic hour, it can be fixed. And if it can, we fix and we charge by the hour. We don't do both. We just do one. You charge by the hour if it's fixable within that hour or hour and a half. Or we do the diagnostic in and out and then present it to the customer that what we know. Now, within that diagnostic, if I get low compression, I don't just stop and say, oh, you got low compression, here, give me your $45. No, I check the valves and I adjust the valves to see if that brought compression up. If it didn't bring the compression up, if it's been sitting for a while, I'll take some PB blaster and just take the spark plug out, put a couple shots right in there and let it sit. And then every so often, you just easily pull it over or turn it over with the spark plug out. Just enough so that it's working that PB blaster down into the rings. Because once in a while, they'll set up on the piston, right? But sometimes you can get some PB blaster in there working, and with it moving up and down, it starts giving that flexibility again. And voila, you got compression. And if I see that happening, then I tell the customer, leave it with me for a week, and I can tell you more. And they ask, well, why a week? Well, because I put some PB blaster on top of your rings, and if that will bring that back so you got good compression, it's savable. If we stop now, we'll never know. I'm not going to charge you any extra for the week of letting it sit there and let the PB blaster work. And by the way, we've had tractors that came in with 3 cylinders dead and one with 30 put in PB blaster, and every couple of days give it another couple of shots and just turn it over, and brought those back to above hundreds. So the worst thing you can let anything do is sit, period, long periods of time, okay? I'm not talking, from fall to spring with your lawnmower. I'm talking couple summers, a couple of years not being used. Your generators, you need to go out and start them every so often, just to make sure everything's working. Let them run for 5-10 minutes. Shut the fuel off on them, let them die out, and let them go another month. That way, when you do need it, you're not sitting there trying to figure out why won't it start. Put in the comments of how you would approach things if you've got a shop or if you're a mechanic. What level do you come at your customers? And are you thinking about the customer, the shop, or both? Because you're okay if you're thinking about both. We're not in it to give our time away for free any more than your customer, when they go to work, they don't. If that company forgot to pay them for an hour's work, they would be irate. So we need to get paid too. But I want us to get paid by giving the customer the best information to go by to make the best informed decision on what the next step is. If that makes any sense. It's all about cost. Bulk of my customers don't even want me to try to explain. It's, Eric, I trust you. Do what you think is best. And our shop, we always have the customer first. First and foremost of what's best for them. Not what's best for me, what's best for them. Because if you take care of your customers in your community, they will take care of you. Simple as that. It's not rocket science, folks. If you care for somebody else, they will in turn most times care for you. Not always, but maybe somebody else care for you for paying it forward, right? So on that note, you guys have a great Monday, and we'll catch you here bright early tomorrow morning for another thing on the weekday. Put in the comments what your thoughts are on today, and how you go about things and what you think. Maybe you're just enjoying the weekday talks and stuff amongst friends with coffee. If you were one of our customers, what would you want to know? This isn't all about mechanics. I learned this quite a while ago, that we have so many people from so many different walks of life. You guys out there, I can't thank you guys enough for staying with me and continuing to watch the videos. Because if not, it'd be just me and the dogs re-watching our videos. Enjoy your Monday.